When Saudi Arabia and Iran buried the hatchet in Beijing on Friday, it was a watershed moment for both the Middle East, which has been molded by their decades-long conflict, and China's expanding influence in the oil-rich area. The announcement was both startling and predictable. For over 2 years, the two regional powerhouses have been in discussions to re-establish diplomatic relations. Negotiators appeared to drag their steps at times, the strong enmity between the two countries looking intractable. Iran's talks with Saudi Arabia were taking place at the same time as negotiations between Iran and the US to resurrect the 2016 nuclear deal were stalling. The outcomes of both Iran meetings appeared to be related. Riyadh and Washington have traditionally moved in lockstep on foreign policy. Yet, a change in regional alliances is underway. Saudi Arabia's relationship with the United States has deteriorated in recent years, while China's status has improved. Unlike Washington, China has demonstrated the capacity to transcend the Middle East's various rivalries. Without the Western lectures on human rights, China has established solid diplomatic relations with governments in the area. In retrospect, Beijing has been positioned for years to negotiate the latest diplomatic breakthrough in the conflict-torn Middle East, highlighting the U.S. dwindling regional clout. While many in Washington will see China's emerging role as a Middle East mediator as a threat, the reality is that a more stable Middle East where the Iranians and Saudis aren't at odds also benefits the U.S., Trita Parsi, executive vice president of the Washington-based Quincy Institute, tweeted Friday. According to Parsi, the incident should prompt a rethinking of Washington's Middle East strategy. What should concern American policymakers is if this becomes the new norm. The U.S. becomes so deeply engaged in the problems of our regional allies that our maneuverability vanishes and our past position as a mediator is totally lost to China, he continued. The end of an era. The accord reached on Friday might mark the end of a bloody period in the Middle East. Since Iran's Islamic Revolution erected an anti-Western, Shia theocracy in 1979, Riyadh and Tehran have been at odds ideologically and militarily. As the 2003 American invasion of Iraq devolved into civil war, tensions in the area erupted into a regional proxy war, with both Iran and Saudi Arabia competing for dominance in the oil-rich Arab country. In the decade and a half that followed, armed conflict pitting Saudi-backed militants against Iran-backed armed organizations swept across most of the area. A Saudi-led coalition military effort to crush Iranian-backed rebels in Yemen produced one of the world's biggest humanitarian catastrophes. In Syria, Iran backed President Bashar al-Assad as he brutalized his own people, only to find his troops pitted against rebels backed by Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states. Iran and Saudi Arabia have also funded various groups in Lebanon, adding to a 2-decade-long political crisis that has exacted a massive economic and security toll on the tiny eastern Mediterranean country. After Saudi Arabia murdered famous Shia Saudi preacher Nimr al-Nimr in 2016, protesters in Tehran set fire to the Saudi consulate. Yet, a litany of economic issues caused by the epidemic and costly wars may have dampened the enthusiasm for violence, and Saudi and Iranian leaders say they are eager to close that chapter. The restart of diplomatic relations looks to be only the beginning of the détente. Officials from Saudi Arabia and Iran said they will also attempt to re-implement a decades-old security cooperation deal and resurrect an even earlier agreement on technology and commerce. It's a rare bit of good news in a community still shaken by their enmity. It remains to be seen how this plays out, and whether it can reverse the damage caused by the rivalry. Analysts believe China's rising clout in the region has helped hedge both nations' bets, reversing a now outdated political calculus that formerly held Western capitals to be the most probable location for historic regional agreements. China is now the godfather of this arrangement, which has significant weight given China's strategic importance to Iran. Ali Shihabi, a Saudi expert acquainted with the Saudi leadership's thinking, told CNN. If Iran violates this pact, it would harm its ties with China, which has invested much in the tripartite accord.